Hi there, Karis here. This week on my blog, I talked about social anxiety. This is something that I see a lot in my office, and especially at this time of year when we're kind of forced into social gatherings, that's something that comes up frequently for people. So I wanted to just share a tool that I mentioned in my post called What's the Worst That Could Happen? Now, this tool is helpful because it helps kind of take the power away from the social anxiety and give a little bit back to you. And it helps with those catastrophizing thoughts we seem to have with social anxiety, that like the whole world's going to explode and we're going to die if we walk into a room of people. And just kind of brings it down and helps us kind of rationalize and calm down a little bit about walking into some of these things. And so what's the worst that can happen? The example that I gave on my blog went something like this. Everyone's going to think I'm the worst mom in the world if my kids do not look perfect. So your first step is to identify whatever the fear or the thought is that you have that's crippling you or holding you back from wanting to be a part of things, or that makes you really nervous when you do participate in activities and gatherings. So in this case, everyone's going to think I'm a terrible mother if my kids don't look perfect. Okay, assuming that's true, what's the worst that could happen? Well, then I'll be exposed. They'll know I struggle as a mom. I sometimes yell and sometimes I fail. Okay, if you're exposed, what's the worst that can happen? I'll feel vulnerable. Okay, vulnerability is an unpleasant feeling for many of us, but if you feel vulnerable, what's the absolute worst that can happen? I guess it'll be uncomfortable for me. Okay, if it's uncomfortable, what's the worst that can happen? I'll want to leave. Get out of there. All right, if you leave, what's the worst that can happen? People will wonder why I left, and they'll assume the worst of me. If they wonder and assume, what's the worst that can happen? They won't know how much I care about them or how much I care about being a good mom. And if they don't know those things, what's the worst that can happen? They'll think poorly of me. Okay. If they think poorly of you, what's the worst thing that could happen? I don't know. And that's kind of how it goes. I mean, you just keep whittling it down until you really can't come up with anything, or until you come up with something that's not that traumatizing. And then you just kind of realize, all right, this big looming fear that is holding me back, like when I really pare it down, the worst thing that can happen is not so bad. So I think I can face that. And it's just kind of a stepping stone towards kind of overcoming that, at least being able to manage it. So that's a lot of information, but that's kind of how the tool works. And as usual, I have prepared a printout for you so that you can go and try this yourself. Click on this video, head on over, and I will tell me where to send it, and I'll get it on over to you. All right, I hope your social gatherings go well this holiday season, to your health and your happiness. Thank you.